And boom, according to that, I am live. Welcome. My name is Seiko Simon. This is Tokyo Tonight. It is 10:32 p.m. Japan Standard Time. I hope that you're all doing well. Great to see so many people already rocked into the chat. 10 concurrent viewers. I can't actually see. In fact, you know what? If I do this, I can see 3 likes and 10 people watching. So, yeah, lovely to see everybody. Dan H asking early on. Lately, I've been trying to put out the notice by about 9:30 Japan Standard Time if I can. So that way, camera, why are you moving? Oh God, it's using the signal thing. Okay, the bat signal. That's why it's moving. I just adjusted the setting. Oh, it is doing that. Okay, stop tracking me. Boom, 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 and over here. It was moving around too much. Okay, hopefully we're good now. I close that. So yeah. I've been setting up the show at 9:30, an hour before, and that should result in for people who get the notifications from YouTube. Apparently, Aaron picked this up. If I set up the show less than 30 minutes before the scheduled start time, people don't get notifications. So yeah, I've been trying to set it up earlier. So I set it up at about 9:30. So yeah, for some people, you might have seen the notice go out a little bit earlier, and that is why. So yeah, it's hopefully that's part of what's brought you all in. Anyway, we've got 9 people in the comments there, and already, yeah, a bunch of great to see so many comments there already. So yeah, first comment up there, Dan H. I've been setting up the live stream early. Yes, indeed, good to see you. Hope you're still around here at the moment. Anyway, it's an hour later. In fact, I think I see a comment further down, so that's pretty cool. We've got a man from Panama there. Shubas is here with a hot cup of coffee. Good to see you indeed. Good morning. Rugby is apparently going to be distracting Mr. Korichev, but sorry, I'm getting weird pop-up things over here just as I set this up. I don't know why it's doing that. Give me a second. Technical feature. Never mind. I think I can ignore it anyway. Good to see anyway. So yeah, there is going to be a rugby game. I think it's England-Fiji is the quarterfinal for the Rugby World Cup happening immediately after this, which is another reason why I'm going to try to stick to being on time. I think I'll probably watch that. Oh, I might not. I don't know. There's 2 really good games, and the South Africa-France game is going to be epic, but I'm going to get up early in the morning and watch that recorded. So yeah, it should be pretty awesome. Quinn Ranked, isn't this the usual time? It is the usual time. So I think the comment earlier was just that I set up the stream a little bit earlier than usual, which is all cool indeed. Natalie, good to see you, Natalie. Good of you to join us. We've got Kerberos Tenshi here. Did you miss the last time? I'm just my normal, everyday, entertaining self. Good to have you in here, Kerberos Tenshi. So back to your office with a kampai. Geez, there is a thing here. I'm going to refresh this window. Hopefully this won't cause anything to mess up, but what if it's my mouse that's doing that? Something is making this right click every time. Ugh. Anyway, this is the usual time. Good to see you, Quint Rackard. And yes, indeed, Dan H. First question. Of course, we had 2 big elections in New Zealand and Australia yesterday. New Zealand had our once every 3 years national election. Yeah, that was cool. It's the first election I've voted in years. It's only about the 3rd time in my life I've actually been eligible to vote. In New Zealand politics, I actually try to, in being far away and not following it closely, I think I developed a slightly idealized view that it's very boring and people don't really care. But when I did actually watch some of the New Zealand politics, it made me glad that I don't follow it most of the time. It's not as bad as other places. New Zealand is a unicameral system. There's no Senate. There's no executive. It's all just one thing. It's like a city council that you vote for. And yeah, we voted to change the government, which I think is healthy. And to Dan H's question, whether we might end up with a hung parliament. Well, because New Zealand has a proportional representation system, we have what's called a mixed member proportional representation system, which is similar to but not the same as the Japanese system. It's the same in the sense that in New Zealand you vote for both a party and your local representative. In Japan, there are fixed representatives for local representatives and sort of bonus seats for party votes, whereas in New Zealand, we make it that overall seats in Parliament are allocated according to the proportional representation results. So you can vote for your local representative, but if if it doesn't balance out properly, we give additional seats basically for parties that don't get much of the proportional representation vote but have representatives. So it looks like we're going to have 121 or 122 seats, where just on pure PR it would be 120. There are always coalitions in New Zealand. Every government in New Zealand, the nature of proportional representation means that to get that 50%, you've always got to get a few small parties to basically hold you hostage. Bad week for that analogy, but yeah, essentially small parties have disproportionate power in proportional representation systems because they decide basically whoever they join, whichever big party they join with, gets to become government, but typically the largest party gets to try first. So in New Zealand, there isn't going to be a hung parliament. There isn't going to be like a draw where nothing gets decided. There is definitely going to be a coalition. It's at least going to be between National and ACT, which is what most parties want to have, the smallest coalition possible, so that you're not giving away too much. What nobody wants, including myself, is for people to join with New Zealand's version of the Australia First, the Pauline Hanson party. We have a New Zealand First party led by a guy called Winston Peters, and yeah, right now it's on a knife edge. Right now there's like one seat that, why is it doing that? There was lately a firmware update to my camera. It's got a mind of its own. Oh, come on, stop doing that. Stop responding to hand signals. Wow, there really is a new technical feature every show. This is awful. I'm turning this off. Stop tracking. Okay, let's move me back into frame. That's annoying. Okay. You know what? Let's do this a different way. I'm going to fix this on the fly a different way because I corrected this a little bit weirdly earlier. Let's do this. Okay, let's try that. Hopefully that will mean even if it starts tracking again, which would be super annoying, and please don't do that. Camera, stop it. Stop it, stop it. Okay. So yeah, hopefully New Zealand anyway will only need to, the government will only need the support of ACT to do it. Otherwise, they're going to have to go to the Pauline Hanson equivalent, the sort of, xenophobic far right-wing party voted by angry pensioners, and that's not good for anybody. But they've indicated that they will support the government, but they'll have demands if the main government doesn't have enough numbers. So we'll find out what happens with that. But overall, it looks like it should be a fairly stable, relatively sane centre-right New Zealand government, which, I think is a positive change anyway. Australia, of course, had The Voice, which I have opinions about, which I'll come to later on. But, I don't think New Zealand's definitely going to have a coalition government. Hopefully it's just going to involve two parties, but we'll have to wait and see. There's an ironic situation where the Maori party in New Zealand has gone and we have Australia debating whether to even have a non-binding advisory body for the Australian government, and rabidly against that. New Zealand has 6 or 5 dedicated Maori seats, where Maoris have more voting power in New Zealand than other citizens. To qualify for Maori, I think you've got to be 132nd. You have to prove you've got like a whatever 132nd ancestor is Maori, and you can you get like bonus voting power. And those Maori seats have been all snapped up by a party that has no PR votes, but they have they've done so well, and that party will only align with the left-wing party, only with Labour. But it means that if it looks like they've been as successful as it looks like they've been, they're going to increase the number of seats in Parliament, which will increase the number of seats you need for a majority, which will ironically force the right-wing party to join with the far right in order to govern. So the weird outcome of this is that if the Maori party, which will only align with far-left governments, does really well, New Zealand will have to become more far-right, which I hope doesn't happen. So we'll see what happens with that anyway. But yeah, indeed, boom, we've got a boom there from Aaron. Good to see you, bada boom. There we go, just got that. I'm a bit slow tonight. Aaron just gave a like for the video. 8 likes, 20 watching. Good to see. Is this my life? Hello from Sweden. I'm doing good. How are you doing? Who else we got in here? Oh, this is so annoying how it's covering up the comments when I look across in the window over here. I can't do anything about that. Oh. Anyway, Yes, Mr. Cordy Chap, that's right. The World Cup is right after the show. Dan H has got another one for me. You find it weird that Kishida is trying to get BlackRock and other hedge funds to invest more in Japan. US hedge funds have asset stripped a lot of UK companies. Similar thing could happen to Japan. I think, though, they're looking for capital. It is ironic. You're right. And they haven't like stripped. It's not possible to do like the asset stripping type stuff in Japan. There are various blocks on that. But what has happened is you have had, I don't think it's been BlackRock, and I'm trying to think of the names. Two things have happened. One, you've had various activists. I'm trying to remember the names of them. Activist sort of investment funds have come to Japan and demanded bigger dividends and stuff like that, and more accountability for failing CEOs, which is very untypical. Board meetings are typically set up to sort of validate the people running the company, and the whole Sokaya thing, the whole business of gangsters who show up and basically get company CEOs to pay them not to come and disrupt their shareholder meetings so that they don't lose their jobs or anything like that, or are not held to account. Lately, US investment funds have been doing that in Japan. And that's been difficult for companies to deal with because they're not used to accountability. And it looks like, given what's happened at companies like Olympus and Toshiba, it looks like it's needed. But what has been happening is a lot of hedge funds have sort of started pulling out of Japan. And there's different reasons for that. The environment here is not very friendly, frankly, towards overseas funds in terms of setting up companies and being able to invest freely, and some have been frustrated at their sort of performance here. So funds like Elliott pulled out of Japan recently, and I think it's making Japan sort of look bad. And with that, you have the declining economy and trying to the government still is obsessed with trying to set up a positive inflationary cycle. And a lot of companies are saying, which is kind of weird because Japanese companies are pretty cash rich, but they're arguing that they don't have the capital to raise wages. So he's hoping that it would bring in money without responsibility, which is never the case when you invite hedge funds in. But I think that's what he's going for. But yeah, interesting point, Dan H. And thank you, as always, for the great comments and questions. Believe in yourself. Great to see you. The voters have spoken indeed. Sadiq, great to see you. A man in Florida. Good to see you. Sergeant Bilko, another man in Sweden. We've got 2 Swedes in the chat. That's good to see. Oh, did I miss out Odie Jr.? I think I missed out Odie Jr. Boom. Good to see you, Odie Jr. Love that Cavalier King Charles Spaniel you've got. Yeah. Oh, US has got daylight saving coming up. I must admit, I enjoyed having the longer days when I was in America, but the changing the clocks thing is still off. So, yeah, Sergeant Bilko is here. Yeah, we're we're almost able to start, I guess. But yeah, bad camera indeed. And people talking about Milka and other stuff. So, yeah, like I say, we've got a rugby game starting in 45 minutes. Very much looking forward to seeing Fiji play. Oh, geez, I haven't been keeping up with the stuff here. Very much looking forward to watching the Fijians play England, and hoping that Fiji does well. Although honestly, they're not in very good form as of late. So we'll see. But should be a comfortable win for England. But the other game, France-South Africa, is going to be awesome. I cannot wait for that. I'm just seeing another problem here. When I refreshed this, it made some of these comments disappear from my visibility. Good to see. We've got peanuts, we've got squirrels, everybody all set to go. Okay, let's jump in. There's been a lot going on this week. And geez, it's been horrific this week, frankly, the international news. Where do you even start on the internet? I mean, I guess, the Middle East. Hey, let's have a light show. So, expressing opinions and solving the problems in the Middle East. I have opinions, but geez, it's just one of those things where everybody has very strong, opinions going. Yeah, I'm not sure. I might say something, but I probably won't say too much about that. I've said I have certain biases on this as well. I have huge sympathy for the Palestinian plight. But at the same time, I mean, just what happened last week was just so, and is still ongoing, and just seeing everything just going to hell at the moment is terrible. I see we've got a comment from Vincent Birch that for some reason is not coming up in my feed, which I can post. So I'm just going to read it straight off the screen. Mate, obviously want to comment on our glorious All Blacks, but first of all, we have to tip our hats to the Midas Taranaki for rolling the Mako in the quarters, and then Canterbury in the semi. Let's go. Talking about the New Zealand domestic rugby. Indeed, looks like we're going to have a stripy final. Hawke's Bay versus Taranaki. I'm actually from Manawatu country for rugby support because I lived in Waiouru. I suffered living in Waiouru for a while, but Taranaki's close. So indeed, good to see. I guess with all the top players all taken away by the All Blacks, it's great how it's kind of changed the landscape of domestic rugby, indeed. And it looked like it was a good quality game. So yes, indeed, good to see. Vincent, and good to see you there in the chat. Thank you for joining. Aaron, thanks for the heads up about that. Yeah, daylight saving, it messes with me at work as well. Panama doesn't have a time change. Japan doesn't either, but yeah, especially because I've got to deal with people like in Australia and America, and at this time of year it gets very difficult. You schedule meetings, or people schedule meetings with you, and they're the ones with the clocks changing, but they forget that, and all of a sudden their schedule, they're saying I have to join a call at 6 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, you get all that kind of thing. But anyway, let's jump into it. We've got the title tonight is deliberate. I know latest Japan crime sandals. That's not a typo. That is deliberate. There is a big story about crime, sandal-related, or generally footwear, but specifically in this case, sandals-related crime. Made the national news. Muneo, who I've been talking about getting fired, Gyomu-Bogai, I'm going to be talking about. So let's go. This week has definitely been, again, in purely Japan domestic news context. It's I just made the tracking thing come on again. Okay, I've got to get into the settings and stop this. But I guess me holding my hand up is causing the face tracking to activate. Oh, that's so frustrating. Wait a minute, I'm going to see if I can turn this off. I can't turn it off. Gimbal control. No, more settings. Auto tracking. Palm. Oh, okay. Boom. Gesture settings. All off. Stop. Okay, I think I fixed it. So anyway, for Japan, it's been a lot of screwing around and finding out has been happening to a lot of people this week, and we're going to be talking about that. Yeah, my camera moves. So my camera is one of these clever cameras that I can use hand gestures to control it, and if I do this, it'll start face tracking. And I turned all of that off because I didn't want it moving when I'm, inadvertently gesticulating. But yeah, there was a firmware update, and it looks like that's been reactivated. So it threw everything into chaos, but everything is now restored. Quinn Rankett, isn't there a way to just hold up my hand to stop the tracking? Yes, there is, and that's kind of what I did. But the problem is the next time I show my hand, like this, it activates again. So yeah, I just made sure it was turned off in the settings. So that's all good. Oh, and there it is now. Now we've got Vincent Birch popping up there. So yeah, the comments are moving at a slightly different speed on the screen here. But anyway, so the first story that we're going in reverse order. Kishida's cabinet support is collapsing. He is down to a support of record low of 32%. I believe that Mori and Aso got down to into the teens. I mean, literally, I think Mori got down to 12 or 13%. I mean, literally, we had actually questioned if his mother would actually still be included in his support statistics or not. Kishida's not quite there, but yeah, the 52.5% disapproval rate is pretty bad for him. And if you think it's because of Fukushima, no, 74.6% of people actually think that Fukushima was appropriate, the Fukushima wastewater release. I think in a way, the Chinese government inadvertently did the Japanese government an enormous favor by deciding that it was really going to focus on the Fukushima wastewater issue in such a ridiculous way. It actually became a context for not only explaining that it's safe, but also for explaining that, China's trolling. And this is a communist propaganda kind of, in a way, I think, turned the general public view very favorably towards the Fukushima thing. So it's not because of the Fukushima thing. It's just generally people are starting to see really the population crunch and the economic crunch in Japan and inflation and stuff like that. And they're just not happy with the way the country is being running. So you think the opposition must be loving this. And no, the largest, LDP only has 30% support. But the biggest opposition party, which isn't even the Democrats, it's the We Love Osaka party, which I'll be getting to soon, only has 6% support, and they're the number 2 party. So in spite of 52%, and as usual, the most popular political movement in Japan at something like 45% support is none of the above. So even though he's unpopular, it doesn't look like his the LDP is going to be collapsing anytime soon. Oh, hang on a sec. Why is it doing this? Stop. Okay. Oh, maybe that's how I can fix it here. Oh, that's how I fixed it here. Okay, I've just figured out how to make that. That thing which was just popped up hiding the comments was also popping up on the other chat window, and it was driving me crazy. I just fixed it. So anyway, that's the first thing. Second thing is just kind of, by the way, this Jeffrey J. Hall, he's wonderful to follow. He posts lots of great sort of news, including, you know, with explanations and stuff. He frequently comments on a lot of news shows and stuff like that. So I love this. A shop in Tokyo, somehow able to sell bento lunches for just 600 yen, which is still kind of a standard price, even though that is $4 US. He reveals his cost-cutting secrets. How does this company manage to sell bentos for just 600 yen? Well, it's easy. He goes to the market at 3:30 a.m. every day, does prep work all by himself, and sleeps less than 4 hours. So basically, he's working himself to death for free. In order, that's his cost-saving secret for achieving 600 yen bentos. I mean, ooh, that's. I hope there's no US CEOs watching this, because if they are, Elon, don't do it. Seriously. Oh, you know what? If it's you, I mean, technically, this is the CEO not sleeping and doing the work instead of the workers. Actually, Elon, do this. Do all the moderation. Clean out all of the propaganda and fake content of Twitter, and do it yourself. You'll save a lot of money. Just like this guy who makes bentos. Highly encouraged. Ian McCauley, good to see you, Ian. Good to have you there in the chat. And yeah, next one down. Ibaraki's made it back to #1. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, Japan has a ranking of the most attractive prefectures in Japan, which people have started to notice that while the most attractive, according to tourist prefecture, you know, it varies. The bottom ranked prefectures, you know, there's been a long time, there's been this sort of a run, the Rocky Balboa run of least attractive prefectures. Ibaraki, just north of Tokyo, has been holding on to the crown of the least attractive prefecture in Japan for such a long time. And last year, in a shock result, really nobody saw this coming. Saga took Ibaraki's crown as least attractive prefecture, and I don't know what they did. I don't know if they started, going around on their motorbikes and their sort of punch permit hairstyles with baseball bats, smashing up more Tokyo cars, or doing other things, but somehow they reclaimed their crown as least attractive prefecture. And I suppose there is one thing, and this actually reminds me, when I was in high school, and my first year of high school, which is, I was like 13 years, New Zealand system, so different system there. I was on the worst ever. I went to a school, all boys, famous for sports, and I was in the very lowest ranked field hockey team in my first year of high school. And I believe that we have a case that I was in the very worst sports team ever to represent my high school in any sport. We played 8 games during that winter, and our final record was 8 games, 8 losses, 72 goals against, and 0-4. And this is in a sport where like 3-0 is a big loss. We averaged losing by like 8 points, or 8 games by like 7-0, and then we had some games we lost by over 20. In the final game, however, we got better through the season. And the very last game, we lost last minute, 0-1. And we were all disappointed, but the coach gathered us around at the end of it. And he said, "Look, boys, I know you're all disappointed. I know you wanted to get a goal, and I know you're sad that you let that one in, but I can tell you, there was a moment there when I thought you were going to get a goal. And if you'd gotten that goal, no one would ever remember us." He said, maintaining the perfect clean sheet of 0 in a way. I mean, I think, in a way, it kind of would have ruined the whole thing. At least we were a clean worst sports team in history by never scoring a goal in that terrible season. And I think that's how Ibaraki, they've started to take pride in the fact that they're never going to get a goal. So very glad that they've got that back in a way. Now that said, Ibaraki, they've got like a massive like Buddha statue that I've never actually seen, but it's up there. They've got like scuba, I think, is up there. They've got like beautiful beaches. In fact, the beaches in Ibaraki you can surf at. They're white sand. They're better looking beaches than Chiba. In fact, because the highway goes to Kashima, it's more accessible. And they're cleaner and better waves than Shonan and Chiba. Yes, it's a little bit colder up there. But, Ibaraki has mountains, it's got ocean, it's got great beaches, it's got plenty of stuff going for it. People make fun of it as being a bit of a Yankee. A Yankee is the old 1980s, 1990s style sort of punk, motorcycle gang rider types is kind of the image of Ibaraki. But, they're not that lame. But yeah, they have congratulations, I guess, now that they're taking pride in retaining that crown of being the least attractive. But yeah, Vincent Birch asking me about cricket. I love cricket. I played cricket like a long time. I'm not able to keep up with it here in Japan, so I don't know anything about it. I did watch, I think I followed on audio and text when New Zealand almost won the Cricket World Cup a couple of years ago against England in that final, and that was even following that was an amazing game. I have no idea how we're doing. New Zealand, because we're a small country, we generally rely on having a couple of really good players to carry the whole team, and sometimes we have that. Countries like Australia have a whole, layers deep. They could put out 3 teams and that'd come first, second, and third. New Zealand's always like, we have good moments, but we rely on. So I don't know the situation right now. I hope we do well, and I'd love to walk. But yeah, I'd love us to do well, but I don't know. Yeah, the worst pep talk ever. It was actually after the game that we got this. We were all a bit dejected that we thought we could have won a game, and the coach said, "Boys, heads up. If you'd scored a goal, no one would remember us." Which I did appreciate. Anyway, demotivational speech. It was the end of season speech, but it was a moment. Yes. What about Saga? Well, Saga took the crown last year, or Saitama or Gunma, which are ugly, and even Tokyo, which is becoming too modern. Yeah. Well, like I said, I think Ibaragi's hard done by, and honestly, I think if the government really put some effort into actually promoting Ibaragi, there's stuff there, and you could totally, I think, get like international tourists and domestic tourists to go there. I think maybe they should do that with all this tourism money coming into Japan. Maybe take the bottom 3, the least attractive prefectures in Japan, and focus on promoting them a bit to circle it. But yeah, Ibaragi it's become kind of something that they've become known for. So yeah, a story here. It's all in Japanese, but it's about sometimes you get these blogs on Japan by here is the reason that I quit X famous company, and they kind of anonymously unload with the inside dirt on what this company is like. And this person, who was a system engineer at Fujitsu, quitting after 5 years, listed his frustrations with working there. And I've worked at Fujitsu, although not as a system engineer. I was a system engineer just before I was a lawyer. When I became a lawyer, I was immediately sent on a secondment to Fujitsu, being told, "Oh, you'll be perfect there." I was trying to get away from places exactly like Fujitsu. That's it. I did love it there. I had a good time. But when I got to Fujitsu, I was thinking, wow, going to one of the major, Japanese system integrators and going to this famous mega corporation that makes these awesome, supercomputers and laptops and everything. So I guess I'm going to give me a really cool computer or something. And they give me this enormous brick, and it was like this was like 2000, geez, when would it have been? 2007, I think. And they gave me like it was like a Windows 98 or Windows 95 PC. And it was like this thick, and it was just running word processor software, like Japanese word processor software. It barely could handle even email. They gave me this horrible computer. I explained, what gives? You work at a famous computer company. Why don't you get good computers? And they explained, oh no, all our new computers, we lease out to our customers, who are like NTT and the government, all that stuff. And when the government when the leases run out on the older equipment, to save money, we recycle the old PCs internally. So we get all the crappy PCs that are now too old to be leased out and charge money for customers. And, to save money, we would never actually give good computers to our own staff because we lease those and sell those. So we're basically used to recycle and save extend the life of these older bad PCs. And as a result, I was on this terrible thing. It took literally like 10 minutes for it to boot up in the morning. And this was, fortunately, I was just doing legal work, so I only needed it really as a word processor at the time. However, the system integrator is saying that he was given to work as a system integrator, a PC that had 4 gigabytes of memory and was running on a Celeron processor. And he said he couldn't do anything. He was told to develop iPhone applications in Windows, was not allowed to use a Mac. And he said that like 8 hours of his days, of his 20-hour work days every day were just spent in project management meetings, where no one was able to code or do anything. And just sort of left out of frustration. And kind of, I was thinking, yeah, that sounds true. And that's what I hear about the big SIs in Japan. So yeah, don't do IT here. But yes, indeed. Project X1, the home of natto. The home of natto. Indeed, Ibaraki natto is big in Ibaraki. I used to live in the area kind of known as Chibaraki in Kashiwa, which is in that corner where Saitama and Chiba and Ibaraki sort of meet. And yeah, I worked in Noto, which is technically still in Chiba, I believe. I might be wrong about that actually. Noto might be Ibaraki, but I think Noto's in Chiba, and that's where they have this the Kikkoman factory for the soy sauce. That's big natto territory. I had natto like with lunch a lot of days there. So yeah, definitely natto country. Yeah, that's not going to help with the attractiveness ranking because you know, yeah, but we'll see. I think West Japan people are not so into that sort of thing. Another big one, of course, right now. A big story. So first story of the night about screwing around and finding out. The Unification Church, not only accused of abusing its members and scamming them out of money and just being a horrible antisocial organization. As a result of all of these sort of things that, of course, led in the end to the assassination of former Prime Minister Abe for the political ties with the LDP, and then, of course, this huge reckoning in the LDP of all the LDP politicians needing to disclose who received money from the LDP. This week, the Ministry of Education and Culture, which oversees the organization, the tax-free status and registration of religions in Japan, announced that it is the way that they described it is they said that they are disbanding the Unification Church, but they're not actually disbanding the Unification Church. They're not banning the church or banning the religion. They're disbanding its tax-free status. So religions in Japan, and I think this is actually an American introduction after World War II, when Japan had state Shinto and was only basically allowing one religion and was kind of shutting down Buddhism and Christianity and so on, and was focusing on a sort of nationalist version of Shinto as a way to unify the country. One of the things the Americans did was they brought in this American concept of freedom of religion, along with the kind of American idea of freedom of religion, secularism, and this idea that because taxes are typically used throughout the world to persecute religions, like many parts of the world, like in Europe, you're allowed to be Muslim or Jewish, but you had to pay extra taxes. Taxes are a way that many countries have tried to regulate and control religion and so on. So, there's this old principle in a lot of Western countries that ensuring religious freedom means making sure that no religions pay any taxes. The consequence in Japan being that a lot of cults and even mainstream religions are not even, not even pretend. They're kind of in the open about the fact that they are just huge sort of money laundering and financial things. If you look at Buddhist priests, like mainstream Buddhist priests, they drive around in like left-hand drive Rolls Royces with tinted windows. I knew the sons of a couple of Buddhist priests in New Zealand who were sent over to New Zealand for university, and they drove like expensive luxury lease cars that their parents paid for, put them up in huge houses. They only ever flew first class. Also, you hear about, you go out, if you ever go out to like Ginza hostess bars and so on, there's always Buddhist priests there. That's where they spend all of the religious donation money. These are not friar tuck. These are not the idea of Western ideas of, these sort of celibate living alone on top of a mountain type priests. These people take all those tax-free donations, and if they're not spending it on hostess bars, they're spending it on donations to political parties and gambling and all sorts of other stuff. And so the Unification Church, which again is losing its tax-free status partly because it's being outed as more of as a kind of a financial scam cult as much as anything. They're losing their tax-free status. So in Kagoshima, they're particularly annoyed at this, and apparently the Kagoshima chapter of Unification Church actually is lashing out at the local LDP representatives who are particularly close to the Unification Church, where of course the Unification Church offered its members to campaign on behalf of these people. As well as providing lots of donations for the LDP whenever they were running to support them in exchange for the influence that they expected in return. And they're saying, LDP, you asked us for help, so you're now delisting us. And this is it. They're allowed to continue being Unification Church. They're just going to have to pay taxes like normal businesses and normal people do. And which, given that they're basically a tax scam to begin with, that kind of like ruins the whole point of it, right? And this is one thing as well, the idea that it's a Korean-based religion, but apparently a lot of the funds that are raised, particularly in the United States and Japan, are funneled back to Korea, and they sort of brag about it, how they got all this money back from Japan. But now all that money that comes through Japan is going to be taxed, which if that church is, the way it appears to be, they're probably going to try not to bring money through Japan anymore. So yeah, they're kind of lashing out, but this is kind of what you get for being a culty McCult face. And yeah, and frankly, this, which also raised another thing that I think I said in another tweet, which is I don't understand really why religions should be tax-free in the first place. Again, when you see what religions in Japan do with all that tax-free money, I mean, if they're not spending it on gambling and prostitution, literally, there's no like celibacy thing. There's no there's no sin concept of sin from gambling in Buddhism. They spend it on that stuff. If they're not doing that, they're literally spending it on politicians and bribery and corruption. I mean, it's and they get to do it tax free, which basically incentivizes politicians to cooperate with religions for like dark money contributions and stuff, as happens elsewhere. So I really, why do they get to be free from tax? So long as it's non-discriminatory, so long as the tax is the same, why should they be tax-free is my thing. So certainly at a minimum, they shouldn't be singling out one. And by the way, even Aum Shinrikyo, they delisted Aum Shinrikyo from its tax-free status. Aum Shinrikyo, the cult that in 1995 nerve-gassed the Tokyo subway. And believe me, they did everything they possibly could to pressure that cult into not existing anymore. And it still survives. It still exists today. It's called Aleph. They've got offices apparently in Hokkaido. So there are some members who held on even through everything, through the mass murder, the nerve gassing, the family murders, all the horrible stuff. Some people still kept believing in that guy. So they can't make the religion itself go away, but they can make them pay taxes. And apparently that's too much if that's what your whole religion is based around. So yeah. Kubris Tenshi, if the boot up takes 10 minutes every morning, that means you have enough time for morning coffee. Well, it's a Japanese company, so you have to show up early if that's the case. Sainted Sir, good to see you and everybody else rocking in, just seeing if I've missed anyone. I am going to, 20 minutes ago, I'm going to try to speed up, as always happens. Japan generally being friendly towards AI, which is good to see. Interesting thing, Japan's considering changing the soccer season. I say soccer, football, whatever. They're going to bring it into line with the European competitions, which probably makes sense, except Japan currently plays through the middle of a horrific summer that it has, but at the same time, moving the season more into winter, while that'll align with European countries, some parts of Japan, like the west coast of Japan and the north, they get like crazy snowfall, which they're somewhat worried is going to put those teams at a disadvantage of having more cancelled games. But yeah, it looks like they're figuring out ways around that. So that'll be good anyway. I think sports in summer in Japan is dangerous. IOC is planning to create esports games, kind of interesting. I'm going to go down here, New Zealand election. I'm going to talk a little bit about Australia. I mean, geez, it's basically Australia voted overwhelmingly no, not to have a non-binding opinion from Indigenous Australians on laws that might affect them. And when you look at the map of Australia, dare I show it? Basically, places that voted no, we don't want to listen to Aboriginals next time we decide to screw them over again. The Australian Constitution requires for the referendum to pass that it needs an overall national majority plus 4 states, I think, need to vote yes. However, that wasn't a question because all the states voted no. But what really... Oh, this isn't the one with the national map. But yeah, basically, Australia kind of showed itself to be, not ready. I mean, it's only 40, 50 years ago that they even allowed Aboriginals to be counted in human censuses. So, disappointing. I was really kind of frustrated at how big the scores were yesterday. Some parts, for what it's worth, most of the cities in Australia did vote yes and were supportive, but most of Australia is still definitely overwhelmingly rural. And that analysis that ABC did showed that the older, less educated, more rural you are, the more likely you are to not want to acknowledge anything about Aboriginal Australians, probably because they're afraid of of losing all the land that they took. So it does correlate to what I would consider to be a map of racist places in Australia. It really does. It kind of, a map of where to go and where not to go. But yeah, Australia's a big redneck country, and they voted definitely that they wanted to not acknowledge Indigenous Australians in the Constitution, which is very disappointing, but it's their choice, and that's what they did. Masashi Mark, hey, great to see you. Thanks for joining. Boom. Let's keep going through. There was some foot crime. I'm getting to this. Oh, I did a nice run yesterday. It was a beautiful day. So I went and I ran across Tokyo, the Rainbow Bridge. That's right, the Rainbow Bridge crossing Tokyo Bay. I caught the train to Odaiba. I put a video up of it yesterday, actually, so you can probably see the highlights on that. Yeah, I ran over Tokyo Bay on the Bay Bridge, and then I ran past on the beach at Odaiba and around Tokyo Tower and halfway across Tokyo. It was a nice 13K run. I took it really easy, but it was a beautiful day for it, and it was a very nice run. Japanese drummer mascot skills, again, world leading. You can check that out on my feed. New Zealand election, Australia vote. Oh, pardon me being a little bit upset with Australia last night, but I think I summarized it. I still love you, Australia. I do. My mum's Australian. I'm half Australian. It's okay. You sort of like my racist uncle, I suppose. I don't actually have a racist uncle, by the way. I'm not being specific. I'm being generic in that. But, I still love you. But, hopefully next time you'll be slightly less racist. This is a fantastic story that I just love. A Kenyan unregistered lawyer who apparently won 26 cases in the High Court of Kenya. I love this. They have to make a movie about this guy. I love him. He's my hero. Let's. Okay, here's the big story here. Japan crime news. In Hokkaido, a 21-year-old Hokkaido resident was arrested after wearing someone else's sandals home from an onsen. This is national news, by the way. So basically you have to pay 100 yen for the locker, and he didn't want to pay for that. So he left his own sandals in the locker and just took a pair of sandals that were already out, took someone else's shoes and went home. Someone complained to the police. The police investigated. They caught the guy and interrogated him. And while you might think this might be a case of mistaken identity, sandal-related mistaken identity, apparently during interrogation, the sandal stealing suspect admitted that not only had he stolen the shoes so many times that he had lost count. He confessed to doing it, and he said that he'd done it so many times that he'd lost count. And I think I think I've said this before, if I'm giving advice to anybody, and I'm not saying any specific names of any specific kick streamers at the moment, but if you were ever detained by the police, especially if you did it, you should just confess immediately. Because, here's the thing. Not only can they hold you for 23 days, for questioning for 23 days, not 3 days like most countries, 23 days. At the end of the 23-day period, they can rearrest you. They can just find out something else to charge you with and extend the limit. And I'm thinking probably the guy realized really quickly that since sandals are involved, they could probably first of all, hold you for stealing, the right foot sandal. And then after 23 days, if you don't confess, they can extend the detention to 46 days based on the left foot. And I would say if he really did do this all the time at that onsen place, and it was, causing lots of complaints to the onsen, it's possible that they could also get him for the old Gyomu-Bogai, which is something else I'm going to talk about tonight. It's basically a generic being an asshole, messing with a business charge, which you can get up to 3 years jail, and in extreme cases gets handed out. So other than the fact that this person was stealing sandals, the police were and the police won't normally do anything. You've got to push them a long way, but when you do, again, it's nice to live in a country of 126 million people where someone stealing some sandals makes national news and is debated. But when the police decide that they're going to get you, they're not playing here. And I don't know. I would not want to be in that situation myself. Oh, now wait a minute. I see. Sorry, the comments here are not rotating the way that I want them to. So anyway, popping up there from Quinn Rankin. Doesn't the press report on that religious corruption? Well, you have an entire political party, the coalition partner of the government, is entirely funded by a single religion, even though religions are not supposed to be involved in politics in Japan. So, at what point is it corruption, and at what part is it like mainstream politics in Japan? Komeito is entirely beholden to a single religious organization. So, yeah, and by the way, yeah, there's actually a case, which I skipped over earlier, of exactly a mayor, specifically, a mayor was actually paying bribes through a local shrine, through a local Shinto shrine, or to be able to distribute bribes for an election. So, yeah, the press does report on religion-related corruption all the time, but it's pretty normal. It's so normal and so embedded, it's actually hard to distinguish what's actually corruption and what's just normal everyday politics here. Kerber's Tenchi, that's a good point. There was no 2.5 Oyajis last month. You're right, I've got to call it Victor and make sure that we keep that roll going. Thank you for the reminder. Vincent Birch, do we reckon BMI is a bollocks way to measure health? Well, you know what? I since my Japanese Kenko Shindan are giving me crap about it. I focused on it as a goal, and as a result, I lost 10 kilos, and I'm a lot healthier and happier for it. So while I know all the arguments against it, at the same time, treating it like it's worth nothing and just being happy, being overweight and miserable and depressed, I'd say it has some value, but it has the same sort of value as like I would say BMI has value like a JLPT level 2. It doesn't make you fluent necessarily. It doesn't actually certify that you're actually really good at Japanese, but it's a worthwhile goal to have if you are interested in improving yourself with regards to body mass. So, I used it as a goal. I still have a problem with my Kenko Shindan giving me a C score if I don't, get in the proper range on it. I wouldn't say it's totally bollocks, though. I'd say it's useful to have. So anyway, so that is the big crime sandals. In Japan, we don't have crime scandals. We have crime sandals. So that was a thing that happened this week. On a related thing, actually there are two other things. There are cases involving live streamers, and the first one, you may be surprised, not actually involving Johnny Somali, but actually involving, there was another 17-year-old kid who was live streaming himself going into restaurants and licking the soy sauce bottle like mouths and stuff, and and when he put this on the internet and says, I'm doing this to all these sushi restaurants, this particular sushi chain, I'm going around the restaurants and look at me, I'm going to put my and this is in the middle of COVID, I'm putting my germs over all the bottles and putting it back. Apart from being completely gross, it did cause a huge collapse in sales for the sushi place, and literally they called it like it was terrorism targeting his business. Even though he's a 17-year-old, he was actually. In fact, how did they do that? Because he still would have been a child for that. But the company sued his parents, and I think he was recently given a suspended sentence, 3-year, which is the full term you can do for screwing with a business. He was given a 3-year sentence, literally, for just making a nuisance of himself at a business. And that's what Johnny Somali is facing for the stuff that he did. So, and they've just recharged him. He got to 23 days, and apparently the whole time he refused to talk. So the police introduced him to the system in Japan of rearrest, which is, I think, a serious human rights abuse. But it's kind of hard to feel sorry for him, particularly when you see like what he did. And it looks like they are going to be aiming it. They're taking all the instances. Basically, they're literally recharging him with messing with the business. That given that everything that he did on a stream, like going into a construction work site and messing around with the construction workers in like a construction site, and then going into restaurants and loudly playing racist music and like then screaming abuse at the employees and stuff like that, and streaming himself doing it, and making that the substance of his streaming and his videos, basically pranking people trying to do their jobs and messing with their business. That is the definition of screwing with a business. That's 3-year prison sentence in Japan. It's not applied to everyone, but it is that thing. When you see in America things where, videos of people at Waffle House, like trying to, I guess that's often assault, but there's things where it's not quite an assault or it's not quite a criminal thing, but clearly they're making it just miserable to work at places like that. They're throwing potato chips at them or something, or, spilling their drink over and just being dicks. Yeah, in Japan, if you do that on purpose to mess with the business, and the police decide to act, and it's a high threshold before they decide to act, consequences, 3-year prison sentence is what's there, as well as the whole 23 days extendable by multiple rearrests for every single different thing they can charge you with in that. And Johnny Somali, given that he videotaped himself breaking this law like multiple times, and they are rearresting him right now for instances, so they can detain him just in questioning pretty much indefinitely for that. Plus, then it takes 12 months to get to trial. From trial, you're looking at up to 3 years imprisonment and then deportation, which also would involve a stop at immigration detention, which is where that Sri Lankan lady died. And something like 5 or 6 people have died in the last few years, because that's the worst part. That's much worse than prison, actually. Again, I'm not advising Johnny. Clearly, I wonder if anyone is, because the fact he's not talking is he's just going to make it worse for himself. Maybe he takes pride in that, but I really, you confess and beg for mercy. Seriously, you get into that situation. This is why people confess even when they didn't do it, because they recognize that if they feel like it's hopeless, which the police do everything in that time that they're detaining you and interrogating you to make you feel like it's hopeless, you'll realize that even if you're innocent, you'll do better pretending to be guilty and taking the consequences than fighting it being innocent, where you'll be in jail for 2 years, waiting to prove that. So that's the calculus a lot of people do, and it's why there's such a high confession rate in Japan and a high conviction rate. And as a result, the police never investigate anything, because they know they can just get anyone to confess to it, because either they'll confess because they did it, or they'll confess because they'll do the math that the police will help them with to say it's faster for them and they'll be punished less if they cop to it than if they maintain innocence. And when you get a case here of a guy who's not going to succeed at maintaining innocence, he should confess, seriously. But pretty much the world, I think, is forgetting him at the moment, which is maybe for the best. Although, really, it is an abusive system, and it's a system which coerces, which is designed to perpetuate injustices against people. And even if there is not even a question whether they're innocent or not, actually, you judge a society by how it treats the least the people who are least sympathetic. And you've got the Kyoto anime case, a guy who set 35 people on fire. His trial is going on at the moment. He's facing the death penalty. And again, I couldn't think of a more horrible person, but at the same time, shouldn't have a death penalty, even though he's unsympathetic in that case. And same with Johnny Somali, the whole way he's being detained and questioned, and the 3-year prison sentence, that's something you sign on to coming into Japan, and arguably even the detention system. But, I think that does violate human rights, is my opinion on that. Eric Bailey, glad that you can make it. Good to see you there. Question from Believe in Yourself. Oh, question. With AI becoming so accessible, would I consider trying out an AI drone to follow me during my runs? In Tokyo, that's not going to be possible. There are drones already that can follow you. There are drones like that, but those are in Tokyo. There are specific areas where you can fly drones. Plus, I've got that camera on a stick that works kind of the same way, so I don't need to do that. Yeah. Now, BMI, I think, has some value. I wouldn't follow too much, but there you go. And yes, Aaron, that was disgusting. The person who was going around licking bottles, and he's in a suspended sentence. He got off pretty light, but if he does anything in the next 3 years, including like another Gyomu-Bogai, he's going to jail for 3 years. So yeah, send him to Detroit. Why do you hate Detroit? What's wrong with Detroit? Yeah. And I think Aaron summed it up well there. Looking at the clock, 5 more minutes. Power run, as always. What else we got going on here? Oh, got to catch up on the stories a little bit. Hope I'm not making anyone dizzy doing this. So yeah, the moral of the story, I've got it on screen there. Saves me having to say it. That's the guy who got 3 years in prison, suspended for 5 years. That's the guy who was going licking the soy sauce bottles. So, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. What else have we got here? Japan, the government's looking at promoting, non-pickup delivery of parcels, which, again, it's nice to live in a country that doesn't have porch pirates, that's a thing. Crime news, Toshiba are going to delist after 74 years of history, mainly because, again, consequences, because they went and screwed around with their accounting. They did some fraudulent accounting to hide the fact that their business was just struggling. They found out about it. 5-minute warning there from Aaron. Quinn Ranked, the guy who did the licking, could you guess how his parents are treating him now? Yeah, no, that would be awful, but what can you do? Time flies when having fun, indeed. Detroit is a bit of a wasteland, but coming back a little bit. Maybe not quite as bad as Chicago, which has a reputation for murder. With Tommy guns. Yeah, I should get focus. Stop chasing squirrels. Okay. In some nice news, South Korea flew back, evacuated 51 Japanese civilians from Israel. It's kind of funny because the Japanese chartered flight that evacuated Japanese citizens actually charged everybody some yen and only flew them to Dubai, and so they're all complaining. I'm remembering the case a couple of years ago where the South Korean military, of course, was like surrounded in Democratic Republic of Congo, and they were like running out of ammunition and besieged, and they were begging anyone for ammunition. And the only contingent from the UN that had compatible ammunition for the South Koreans was the Japanese. So the Japanese went and shipped them a whole bunch of ammunition. And when the South Korean government heard the Japanese saying that we're very proud to have cooperated with our South Korean friends, giving them ammunition to help hold out in a siege situation, the South Korean government ordered their peacekeepers to give the ammo back to Japan. That's how bad, when the left is in power in Korea, that's how anti-Japanese they are. And it's coming back. It's going to be that bad when they get reelected, which will be probably immediately after the current government. But while they're friends, it's nice to see that they're cooperating. I wish this would go on forever, but it's not going to. But it's nice when it lasts. So thank you, South Korea. I think that's great. And yeah, it's good to see that people, I know people in Jerusalem at the moment, and people in different parts of Israel, and Gaza's definitely getting it the worst of anywhere, of course. But everyone else is also suffering from rockets getting fired at them from Gaza, from Hamas specifically. And it's pretty terrible for everyone there, and it's causing a lot of foreigners to sort of need to get up. 2 more minutes. Training day, not train day. Train day, not training day. I was thinking of that movie. Toyota's got like a 4-year plan to start making EV batteries, which makes me think, yeah, this is looking a lot like smartphones all over again, how Japanese makers are going to crash from being the best phone makers in the world to becoming irrelevant. That's how they're looking in cars. They're moving way too slowly. Why should religions be tax-free? Lots of people seem to agree with that thought, but yeah, I don't personally. Seasonal stuff in Japan. Why is the best food always season limited? This Bulgaria yogurt, lemon flavor, the best yogurt I've had in Japan like in years, and it's finished because summer is over, and that is a shame. John Cohen may be becoming the Japan manager for rugby. That's kind of good news. Former NHK drooling right-wing extremist lead is saying that Japanese people should learn how to fight for Japan when we're attacked, and everyone responding on the internet, hey, why don't you fight? Some other good news of screwing around and finding out a blogger who thought he would be a troll and harassed a Zainichi Korean woman online in his blog, naming the woman, saying she should go back to her country, sued him for compensation and was forced to pay $14,000. Don't be an asshole. I mean, that's like the theme, I think, of the show. I hope the story comes through in the news that it's nice to live in a country where assholes, even at that day-to-day small level that you might think is unavoidable. In Japan, there's real consequences. Maybe it's too heavy, but the result is, just, don't be an asshole, and you don't have to find out. And I think, is there anything else I can cover this week? Johnny Somali just rearrested, and they've got a whole list of things to rearrest him with, so he could be held in interrogation forever. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap it up there. Let's go double speed. What happened? The Saitama branch of the LDP proposed a law making it illegal for parents to leave their kids at home. And apparently the backlash from stressed out Saitama parents was so intense that everyone is now looking at the weekly magazines and now throwing the LDP member who was proposing this. They're pulling up scandals where they've found him sort of having affairs, and they're sort of everyone's ganging up on him, and basically is causing such a backlash against the LDP for the Home Alone law. I laugh at myself. That was a well chosen gif. Oh yeah, the home feed earlier this week. Do not look at the home feed. Yeah, Twitter should totally be investigated. The amount of fake sort of content and propaganda and stuff this week has been horrific. And oh yeah, final one for the week. Suzuki Muneo. I know I'm over time, but final one for this week. Suzuki Muneo. So he went to Russia. He didn't tell this party he was going to Russia. He went there. He praised Putin. He went and said, I really hope you guys kick Ukraine's ass, and Ukraine doesn't have a chance. I'm going back to tell Japan that we should all go back and support Russia. He didn't ask his party's permission, and also broke foreign ministry guidance, which is saying to Japanese not to visit Russia, which he broke. So when he came back to Japan, his party, the We Love Osaka party, he's not even from Osaka. He's from Hokkaido. They said that they're kicking him out, and just as they were doing the paperwork to expel him from the party, he charged into the office with cameras and said, "You can't fire me. I quit." And no information on whether the door hit him on the way out, but I sure hope it did. Because seriously, this guy's an ex-convict for corruption who's back in parliament, and he gets back into parliament and he's literally posting Russian propaganda. So he has no place in the government. So what can you do? And that was a tofu wagon. That was a tofu wagon indeed. Believe in yourself. SNS indeed going to hell. And let's just close the week on that. I think you summed it up the way that I'd sum it up. Aaron, and yeah, okay, that's right. Actually, he insists on having a lawyer. Oh, was this Somali? That's another thing. You don't get a lawyer in Japan. You don't get a lawyer. You don't even, in fact, the police who interrogate you control your meals and your sleep for 23 days, extendable multiple times, and you don't get a lawyer. So yeah, you don't. Again, he's clearly not getting advice because he's in a bad way. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But yeah, it's a bad thing. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there this week. Thank you for keeping me company once again. In fact, I think I had something on this. I think I said it here. Yeah. So final thought on the Somali thing. It's already 23 days is already absurd. The fact that they can rearrest is absurd. It's a human rights abuse. But hard to feel sorry for him. So don't be like him. Have a good week, everybody. Do take care. I'm going to go watch the rugby now. Daylight saving coming up, I guess. I guess it's in November, but keep an eye out for that. You're right. I'll see what we can do about getting another 2.5 Oyajis back. Remember to like if you like. I do appreciate it. Remember, I'm not monetizing these videos. I do it for the love, for the peanuts, the squirrels, and the likes. So give me a like and a peanut. And I'll see you all later. Have a good week, everybody. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's going to be called next week. And see you later. Well, peace. Any stream.